Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and welcome to the best ultimate jumper guide video that you're ever going to need. This is going to be a full deep dive walkthrough, so it may be a little bit longer. Timestamps will be down below, and this is going to set you up. So whether you are a new player who hasn't got into the game yet, maybe you just started, you're someone who's been playing for a while, but you're thinking, hey, this is maybe the time for me to restart, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know. This is going to be for you. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us up, because it helps out a lot. Let me get some important disclaimers out of the way. Number one, I have to give a shout out to contributors. So I built out this guide, and I'm also going to have this available. So on my free-to-play jumper guide doc, I will have this on the Discord, and I'm going to post it 24 hours after this video is up. So if you're curious, you will just go, there's a link to the Discord in the description, pinned comment down below. When you join, you go to reaction roles. You'll select Call of Dragons, fourth from the left. This section here, or category, may or may not pop out. If it doesn't, just click it. Then you go to COD Data Stats, and I'm going to put it right here under number 6 on the permanent section at the bottom. Okay. With that in mind, I'll just minimize. So next, let me briefly explain what jumping is. So the short version is that you're essentially making an account, typically in a Season 1 kingdom, usually on the early to mid side, or stages of that Season 1 kingdom. And you are just trying to level the account up as much as possible. You're boosting it up by going out and leveling buildings, doing technology, fighting Darklings, leveling up your heroes, acquiring artifacts, doing some war pets, etc. Right? You scouting, right? Getting things out there in the field. We're going to touch on all that. The idea is that you are leveling up an account, and then you move that account after a number of days to whatever the brand new kingdom is, where you get to start out at a higher level in a brand new kingdom than someone who just downloaded the game and got loaded into that kingdom, right? So you're basically being able to start off in a boosted state. Okay, now, as always, my next one I want to point out is that keep in mind this is for, we're going to be covering the first week predominantly of your jumping phase, and then we'll also touch on some things, which is essentially in the first kingdom, and we'll also touch on some things once you move to final kingdom. In addition, if there's anything else that maybe I'm missing, we didn't cover, please let me know, because I'm going to keep adding to this guide and eventually put out some version update videos right as time goes on. And hopefully you enjoy. Okie dokie, artichokes. So let's also start off with the next piece here, which is going to be, what are the limitations for jumping, right? So let's go to the item, which you're going to find in your inventory, and then we'll go here to other, and you're going to find a beginner's migration item. Now, there's 3 important things to note here. Number 1 is that you cannot go to level 12. So you have to stay at level 11, which means you can level all your buildings up to level 11. You also, right, it's not an either or, it's in addition to, you cannot be 7 days old, right, or exceed 7 days. So you have to jump before your character gets to be 7 days old. Now, the challenge here is that, unlike Rise of Kingdoms, they do not give you a countdown timer for when this item expires, which means that if you are jumping with a group, it is imperative. I cannot say this any more with level of basic tone. It is imperative. It is of the utmost importance that if you are jumping in a group, you all literally try, at least as many of you as possible, if not up to everyone, tries to make your characters at the same time, within the same window. And then you need to be able to track and have a timer. Now, what do I recommend for you to do? What I recommend for you to do is to put some kind of a timer, right? If you have a stopwatch, if you have a timer you want to use on your desktop because you leave your computer running all the time, if you want to leave, or if you want to set a specific day and time notification on your phone, as maybe you're setting multiple alarms, right? Maybe one alarm is you have 24 hours left. Maybe the second alarm is you have 18, 12, 6, 4 hours left. However you want to be creative about doing it, I recommend setting a timer. Okay. I think that probably covers, oh yeah, sorry. And the last one is Brink of War. Let me go back to that. It was at the very bottom. So Brink of War, right? You can also not use your beginner migration if Brink of War has already started. Now, thankfully, the Brink of War event is essentially your EOTC or your Eve of the Crusade event from Rise of Kingdoms. It's basically a pre-KVK event that happens at the end of the season before you go into Season 2, which will be your first KVK. So again, as long as you are migrating before the event starts or using your beginner migration item before the event starts, you're okay as well. So just keep in mind those 3 things. Now let's get to the meat of everything, which is, number 1, before we kind of go into how to actually go about using your beginner immigration item here. A few things is, one, with buildings, because you can only go up to level 11, you're not going to be able to build some of these additional ones like the second foundry and the bazaar. Along with military, you're not going to be able to build the eagle nest, right? So you really have 2 main buildings, but a 3rd additional building, and then some, I believe, additional once you continue getting on. There's other ones you'll do for resource buildings later on. And then another important note here is do not claim or use any RSS items until you get to Final Kingdom. So anything you get from that would end up here, in your resources tab, do not use any of these, right? Save all of them, because if you end up exceeding your storehouse limits if you end up exceeding your storehouse limits when you use your beginner migration, right, any additional resources beyond your storehouse limits will be lost, right? Very similar to when you're doing typical migration or standard migration. Do not use any speed ups in the first kingdom. You will not have to. Save all of those until you get to Final Kingdom. In addition, we could probably also note, and actually I'll get to that in a moment because we're going to go through things like daily tasks. The last big important note I'm going to mention here is that command points, elixir, merits, and alliance credits will all carry over from your first kingdom to your final kingdom. I did confirm this with CoD CS. So again, hopefully that ends up panning out to be right. Then we end up, let's go to the next one here, which is how to actually do your beginner immigration. Oh my God, my girls are so funny. So you're going to end up using this by zooming all the way out. You're going to go to season overview, and then we're going to go to construction, right? Remember, you're in the war phase. You're season 1. You go to construction. You would click on something like 433, and then you would click on this button here, right, in order to do your migration. And it does say migration permitted. You can also view here, and you can see that you've met all of the characters, right? And it says you have beginner migration item. You have not reached the beginner usage limit. Which means that, because this is the next important thing, is that, hang on, sweetie, is that you have a limit per kingdom on how many beginner migration items can be used. Now, I am kind of assessing that this is probably going to be about 500, give or take, and that's mainly because of what we've seen in Rock. Now, again, that's just my guesstimate. We do not know. Keep in mind, even if you are not able to get into the kingdom with a beginner migration item, if you are in a big group, you still can create a new character there. You would, again, just have to start from 0, essentially. In addition, you have not exceeded the server's power limit, which, again, I'm assuming that even if you're going to use the beginner migration limit, this is important. And I don't know if there's going to be anyone that just YOLO buys out the shop every day. And if you could even get to 3 million power, maybe you could with a level 11 limit. But, right, I'm assuming that you just can't exceed 3 million power if you're going to go in there on day 7, which would be kind of nuts to an extent. On day 1, right, with the jumper. And then, of course, no more than 5 characters on the same account per server as well. Obviously, they've increased this because it used to only be 1 character per, then they made it to 2, and obviously now it's been increased a bit more. Okay, now with all that out of the way, let's go to building priorities. That's what we're going to start with. Now, for building priority, the recommendation here, which is pretty standard, you are going to go Town Hall or City Hall, Alliance Center, right? So basically, you want to level these up at the same time, at the same level. So an example would be, if this is at level 7, I want to get my Alliance level to level 7. Or sorry, I'll say this. If this is at level 2, I want this to be at 2. If I get this to 3, then I immediately upgrade this next to 3. So just think of it like that. So from City Hall, the very next thing you upgrade before you upgrade your City Hall again is you go in order of Alliance Center, Academy, and then you repeat. Right, now this is again up to level 11. Once you hit, now you may need to have other prerequisites and other requirements. I'm going to have a list for that in the guide. So if you want to know what all of the requirements are up to level 25, those will be listed there. You can view that again on the Discord. However, once you get to level 11, then the next order you want to go in is going to be military and then hospital. And this is mainly because of this, where you want to be able to train as many troops as possible. We'll get to that in a moment. during your first week, right, or your first 5.5 to 6.5 days before you end up moving to your final kingdom. So it is imperative that once you get your Alliance Center and your Academy up, which will save you time on upgrading other buildings, which also will get you to your military buildings that much faster, and finishing out everything else, hopefully being able to have all your buildings at level 11 before you go to Final Kingdom, you'll then be able to start training troops at level 11, right, which is the highest you can get them in your first kingdom, and therefore being able to get the most amount of return on troops trained. Then, for second builder, this is the next important as far as how we're spending gems. This is going to be one of the things we'll also mention. We'll also do an overview for gem spending later on. But the next thing you really want to do is you want to get your second builder unlocked. Now, how might you do that? Well, let's give an example here. Let's say I'm upgrading this herbalist hut, and I need to upgrade something else. If I do that, to permanently unlock, you have to spend 5k gems. So you want to do 5k gems first. The next thing that you're going to spend gems on is going to be, and I might as well just say this now, is going, because we're going to come back to the VIP store anyways, is going to be to get to VIP 8. And the reason why VIP 8 is important is because of two things. One, it unlocks your second research queue, so you get to do 2 research queues at the same time in the academy, similar to once you unlock your second builder, so you get 2 buildings and 2 techs. And the next one is that you get to start gaining 1 legendary sculpture or token for legendary heroes. This is also important. In addition, you do get the 10% research speed. You can see you also get 10% build and training speed and gather, right? So again, these things will help you as you continue. Now, you may find that there's going to be other needs to spend gems on. However, what I will say is that at least when it comes to gem spending, the likelihood of you spending things, for example, on like a watchtower, and I don't even know if I could even show you that because I don't know if I have it here yet, but because I don't see it, that's okay. Let's go to my next one. This is why we have backups. So watchtower will probably be the next thing that you'll most likely spend gems on. You may also spend gems on rally beacon, and again, this is typically where you have to do forts to get these. That's a little easier than it is as far as accumulating sentinel arrows, which you get from attacking Darklings out in PvE. So this is why there's a very high chance you'll probably end up using gems on your watchtower more likely than you would your rally beacon if you're consistently doing forts. And we'll kind of talk about some of those things later on as well. Next, let's get to the academy. So I'm going to give you a priority order for what you're going to focus on in the academy. And this is pretty standard as well for kingdom builders. This is pretty similar for Rock as well. You're going to go Architecture 1, which is increasing build speed. Scholarship 1, which is increasing research speed. Then you're going to go Architecture 2. And then you're going to go Scholarship 2. Now, these are overall priorities. You are not going to get to all of them, especially the Architecture 2 and Scholarship 2. You will get to Architecture 1, and depending on where the level is required for Scholarship 1, you may or may not get there. But the idea being is that these are the 4 most important ones you want to do and work on in order to min-max your development in the beginning and up to the long term. However, the very first tech you want to do before you start working on those is going to be conscription. And I say that because, one, it's only 15 minutes. If you get helps on here, it's going to finish probably within 5 or 6, I would imagine, give or take, or maybe just be done. And you get a flat 10% increase on train speed. So that's going to help you early on. So that's your first tech. And the next 4 is kind of your just long-term priority. But then while you are waiting, let's say that you've already upgraded those per each level. You can't do them anymore, or you're waiting to get to the next level to start upgrading the next level, or sorry, the next academy level to then work on the next tech level. While you're waiting for those, the order you want to go in is going to be, and I think I put military leadership somewhere on here. Yeah, so it's going to be military leadership. Let me add that because I thought I added this to my sheet, but I didn't. Let's do this. Hang on. Leadership 1, and then we'll just say and 2 once you get to it. But you go military leadership 1. You will then go, what do I have here? I think it's gold. Yeah, gold mining, logging, because these are going to increase gold and wood speed. You're also going to eventually do mana harvesting and rock, which is for ore and mana gathering. We'll also be looking at things such as supply chains 1, which is overall gather speed. And then in addition, things, for example, like stamina and breath control, right, which is increasing CP recovery speed, which is what you're going to be using when you're out fighting PvE out in the field. And then also increasing max CP. So you're increasing the top end and you're increasing the recovery end. Now, again, there's also going to be level 2s for these. Basically, just kind of follow that in order because that's really going to be important for you to work on. And again, you'll be able to do those, right, however much you get. Eventually, you're going to, again, if you're active and you're playing your account as a free-to-play, you are going to max out your academy before you most likely move. Again, especially if you're active and you're in an active alliance that is giving helps. The next one here is going to be military. Now, the brief mention on military is pretty simple. The idea being is that you just want to train troops nonstop. Never stop. The only time you should really stop training troops is when you need to level up your military building in order to get to the next troop training tier, right, or troop training total amount. Next is we're going to talk about the Goblin Market. So Goblin Market, there's two sides here. There's the scrapping side, and then there's the merchant side, which is purchasing items. Now, you may not even need to use the scrapping side in the first week or in the first kingdom, but if you do, and let's just say you have so many things you've already, right, it'll probably just be some of the blues, which, again, I would probably imagine may happen first. Now, if you just don't even want to touch scrapping until you get to Final Kingdom, that's totally fine, and I would always just recommend double checking. But blues are typically the easiest to accumulate, so there's a chance maybe some people, maybe if you're spending or just super, super active, you're going to be able to max out your skills for some of your blue heroes, and any excess you get from them, you can always scrap. But again, proceed with caution. The next side of Goblin Market is going to be okay, hang on, let's go to my main then, and hopefully it's there. So the next part of the Goblin Market here, right, you have 4 rows. Resources is 1, speed up is 2, boosts here are 3, and other is 4. Now, the order you want to go in for purchasing here is going to be 2, 3, 1, 4. Prioritizing resources for 2, speed ups for 2, boosts for 3, resources as your 3rd, and then other as your 4th. Now, you may switch this as you get later on in the game, where maybe getting things like legendaries and epics are a little bit more important than the resources per se, so maybe you'll focus. However, I should also note, you only want to spend resources here. Do not use your gems, right? Premium currency should only be used on the second builder, getting to VIP 8, maybe expanding VIP, or saving for things like Watchtower and or your Rally Garrison building. So basically everything here you want to max buy, but you just want to do it in that order, only spending resources once again. In addition, you also want to use your free option here. Because again, right now, after you get one free option, so every time the merchant comes around, right, you want to basically go in here, buy out everything that's RSS in that order, click on free because it'll swap these out for new ones, buy out everything again for resources, and then wait for it to come up again. Next one is we're going to talk about altar. Now, the altar basically could also be called the tavern. In short, you want to use 10 keys at a time for Artifact Compendium because you get a guaranteed epic or legendary for every 10 draws. And the same thing for gold chest that you'll do as well because you get a guaranteed epic or legendary every 10 draws. Now let's get to the alliance. Now, for the alliance part, we'll be showing you off. I do need to switch characters real quick in order to hammer this next point home, which I believe is vitally important. So while that's loading, we're going to go back here. Now, in order to, like we were talking about before, for Alliance, you can take with you and carry over command points, elixir, and merits. This is important because once you get to a stage where you get to unlock your Alliance, which is at level 4, you then have to wait until Augerstone Chapter 5, which is where, and we'll go here, I think it should be. Oh, actually, it's not. Dang it, it's in the Season 1 Kingdom. Let's go back, because I need to be able to show that one off. Oh, dang, I didn't have this one leveled, huh? Well, you'll get it. I'll show you it here, because at least I can show you the visual. So once you get to Augerstone 5, which is a date with Destiny, this is where your merit shop will unlock, or your Alliance shop, I should say, will unlock. Once you get to Warsong, which is Chapter 8, your basic merit store will unlock, and you can start gaining merits. So, for example, if you want to be able to do something like gain merits, you most likely will not jump with your project in a brand new kingdom, if that's important to you. Now, yes, you may miss out on some of the early Augerstone rewards, but I could argue that the early Augerstone rewards aren't really that amazingly significant, where it doesn't outweigh starting a little bit later to start doing things like merit trading to gain those. Now, if we go back to this so I can show you in the Alliance. If we go to store, you can see that the Alliance store here and the Merit shop is unlocked. Now, the important part here is that, in addition, keep in mind, when you are starting out in a new kingdom, you are also going to have a buff here that you may have seen in my last screen when we were in 431. And yes, for those some of you wondering, because we might get this question asked, I have a character in every kingdom. I'm a sicko. I get it. With that in mind, is that you will have a starting buff that gives you 100% increased building 100% increased donation, meaning that your donation recovery is double. And because of this, it's important that you never max out your donations, right? So you don't want to be like this. You don't want to be like where I'm at right now, even though this is just an example character and I don't play on this, is that you don't want to be 10 out of 10. You want to stay 9 out of 10. And the only time you should ever be 10 out of 10 is if you're going to sleep, right? And you just have no way around it. Now, if you want to be the ultimate sicko, then you would time that out, right, for how free, like you would look at what's the recovery speed for one donation, multiply that by 9, and then that would be your max, right? So you would donate before you go to sleep, set your timer to wake up, donate 9 again, go back to sleep. Now, I am not recommending anyone lose sleep like that, but if you wanted to, that's how you would do it. So essentially, you just, when you're awake and when you're active, you never want this to hit 10. You always want to be at 9 or under. Right? And then you can do your times 9 or times 8 donations after you've done one, and just take advantage of that because it's going to allow for you to get a lot more Alliance credits as well through the donations and also help advance your tech. So with that in mind, let's briefly just kind of talk about the store here. What is important on the Alliance shop? Well, similarly to what we were talking about for the Goblin Merchant, is that through gaining credits, you will most likely going to want to be focusing on speed ups. And then I would say things like boosts. Now, arguably, I could also just say only speed ups, which I would be totally fine with as well, because you're going to be able to get RSS and boosts or other items from the merchant. But speed ups, right, is something that you'll be limited on, just like you will in the merchant for how much you can get. So, depending, because this resets every week. If you end up getting maybe better items, for example, if this swaps out and maybe you can get something over 60 minutes. However, I would argue the most important thing here is going to be 60-minute building speed ups, right? And then maybe secondary would be tech, third would be training, and fourth would be universal. And I say that because, again, as a free-to-play, building speed ups is probably, and speed ups in general, but more so for buildings, is where you're really going to find yourself dampened or limited in the beginning. Now, yes, you could probably say the same for research as well, but I would argue that buildings are a little bit more important early on because it unlocks more things than research does, specifically, right, with the exception of, things like your troop tiers, right, and others, but mainly that. And so that's why, for me, I think buildings are a little bit more important as far as speed ups go, and so that's why I would say focusing on those. Now, again, if you have a different opinion for that, I'd love to hear. Let me know in the comments. Now, for Merit Store, as we said before, because things like Elixir and CP, oh, sorry, that's mana, or CP, there we go, CP carry over. Right now, command points, like we said, are going to be used for PvE, right? This is fighting Darklings, beasts, war pets, etc., I believe, for war pets. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong there. Elixir is that going to be used for healing. Now, this is used for free healing, right? So this is something where, again, do I think that you're going to need, right, because keep in mind, these will reset every season. Now, do you anticipate you're going to be fighting a lot and maybe having war in the first season? Maybe, maybe not, right? It's always kind of a toss-up. So because of that, I don't know if I'm going to put Elixir that high on a priority list. I truly believe that if you're going to buy things out here, it should still be a priority focus on similar to what the Goblin Merchant or the Merchant Shop is, with the addition of things like CP, right? So I do believe that you should be buying out CP and speed ups as your top 2 priorities, and then eventually working on things like, your legendary medals, if you want some additional RSS here and there. Maybe even like some regeneration potions for pets. As far as skills, I will tell you at this moment, I really haven't messed with war pets too much. So if not basically at all, but I can at least, and so this is where I will leave it up to the projects, right? So again, your project leadership should be letting you know on if you are just gaining that many merits and you have that amount that you're able to then spend on excess things because you're already going to have enough for the daily resets, then fantastic. But I will let them advise you on what to spend for there. However, you might be wondering, well, boss, how do I gain merits? Well, the whole point of waiting until August 8, which allows for you to then start gaining merits, is where you'll go out in the field and merit trade. Now, typically what we usually see for merit trading is where you will go, and let's just see if we can find one randomly. So let's go and see if there's let's go to Season 2, right? Here, I'm just going to click on a random one. Maybe we'll check a couple, and I'll show you, see if we can find an example of merit trading. Oh, look at that. Psh, first one. Prime example. Shocking. And so this is essentially what merit trading is, where you will take two kind of tanky infantry marches, and you will 1v1, and you'll just go out and attack. And usually the explanation I've been given is that it's because it lasts the longest, and it does the most amount of overall, I don't know if I want to say most amount of overall damage, but because it lasts the longest and because you're fighting a lot, the amount that you'll gain is factored into that, along with some other pieces as well. And I'm sure someone could probably give a better explanation for that, but that's the very kind of TLDR short version. And so this is what you're going to be seeing happening a lot in kind of KVKs when there's downtime, or any kind of downtime, right? Really, you should, I would argue, almost have one march constantly doing merit trading whenever all of your marches are fine. And then obviously the rest would probably be doing RSS gathering. But having one, especially once you start getting some infantry units or infantry heroes, to start doing this. Now, your project may say that you could start doing it before you get infantry heroes, and again, I'll leave that kind of up to them. I just kind of want to show you what the end game or kind of mid-end game looks like for merit trading. Okay, now let's move past the Alliance and go to VIP. For VIP, level, like I said, is going to be 8, and then of course you can kind of go beyond there. Now let's talk about what are you going to actually be purchasing in the VIP shop. Oh gosh, do I even have the VIP shop? You know what? We'll do this. This is why it's important for me to have my other one. So, if I can find it, because I know I'm not cray-cray, right? Totally cray. I'm just going to click on everything. So now when you get to the store, what are you going to be buying here? Well, you're going to buy your CP recovery, because that'll carry over. You're going to buy your 5-minute speed-ups. Then you're going to buy your epic medals and your legendary medals, right? Because those are, again, I believe are the only 4 items you can buy here for RSS, as long as I'm not cray-cray. Yeah, I think so, right? Yeah, I believe so. So with that in mind, again, these are what you're going to buy. Now, the order you'll probably buy these out in, again, if you're free to play, I would probably argue 5-minute speed up, CP recovery, epics, and then legendary medals, right? Now, you could probably flip-flop on basic CP or 5-minute speed-ups, but the idea is that you should just have enough RSS to buy these out, right, every reset. Okay, now let's get to scouting. Scouting is pretty straightforward, where really it's just something that you're going to have to do in Season 1, right? And I will go to back here so we can show you. You're just going to be constantly scouting. And as far as, is there a trick to scouting? Is there a certain way that I recommend going about it? Not necessarily. You know what? I'll tell you what I like to do. When I scout, I like to just to kind of go in. I like to send my scouts in both directions. So, or sorry, yeah, in both directions. But I like to kind of go out and in. So I like to kind of search the perimeter first. Once I have the perimeter for that zone, then I'll kind of do book. I'll do like book reading left to right and just kind of work my way up. Now, keep in mind, once you get, I think, to about whatever it is, 70, 80% cleared, there's going to be a watchtower that you're going to be able to find somewhere on here, and that will allow for you to basically fast clear the remaining fog, right? So you're not going to have to like 100% everything as long as you find that and you keep checking on it to see what percentage you're at. But basically, you're going to capture all villages and caves and anything that you can do or find from the Explore feature. And I'll show you kind of how that looks here, right? So if I already have it, so I'm on Explore. So all these green things you're going to do. There's also going to be other scouting items that you'll find too as well, like supply chests that are out there. And the idea is just do everything. Because if you do everything, it's going to put your character, and there's no limits, right? I know that might be a question for people coming from Rock because there was limits on things like caves. I do not believe there's any limits right now. However, I will also say as a disclaimer, I did not ask CoD CS that. That's actually a great question that I should ask them again, which is if you capture all the villages and caves, can you then capture the same ones when you go to the next kingdom? Now, I will say this. My soft assumption is that unlike Rise of Kingdoms, where you have 4 different starting maps, or 4 different kingdom maps that are basically 90-degree rotations of each other, in in Call of Dragons, there's not. You get the same map. So because of that, I would soft assume that if you capture all the villages and caves in one kingdom, they're probably already going to be captured and shown as captured when you go to the next new kingdom, right? At least as it pertains to Season 1. Then let's get to things like quests. So with quests, which you're going to find here on the scrolling tab, the idea here is it's okay to do main quests because you'll also get gems from main quests. However, you do not want to capture any side quests that specifically give you RSS. And that's because you want to wait to get those or to claim them once you get to your final kingdom. Again, with the idea of not exceeding your storehouse capacity limits. The next one is going to be your Titan's Legacy. Now, this is really important because it is going to factor to your seasonal rewards as well. And this one's done at the moment. Let me see if we have it on the other, because that'd be great if I could show this off briefly. Let's see here. Boom. So we can. Lovely. So once we get here, you can see that you have dailies, which basically you just want to do everything here, right? Try to do everything daily. Weekly, same thing. Read everything, do everything weekly. For seasonal, read everything, do everything seasonal. And some of these you may be needing some alliance help with. And again, hopefully your alliance will be communicating that whenever they're trying to kind of help you guys complete these. In addition, with things like rewards, right, you do want to try and reach max level if you can, because you will get some legendary artifacts. And you also get some kind of nice rewards along the way. Now, to unlock these, you have to pay money. So again, it's kind of up to you. Keep in mind, this is a free-to-play guide at minimum. So anything you spend, right, you'll be able to kind of achieve a little bit beyond that. But if we go all the way to the end, you can see here where you get to choose one hero token you want to unlock a G1 legendary hero. You also get where is it here? I think it is the G1. So because I think to unlock this, in order to do that, you have to make the purchase. So really, it's just the G1 hero you'll be able to get. But every 10 stages, right, you get some nice stuff. So you get some keys there. You get another G1 token. At 50, you get some keys. 40, another G1 token. 30, some keys. Let me see, where's 20? G1 token. And then 10, some keys. So keys and tokens, right, not the end of the world. But again, just try to make sure you're doing as much of that as you can. Next, what we're going to talk about is events. So for events, and I think that this is really important, is that there is, where is the thing here? Let me double check, because if it's not here, I'm going to have to go back to our newer kingdom, because this one's, So let me go back to the newer one, because I do want to give you the best example here that we can. I think 431 is still only a couple days old. So, however, with events, there's going to be a number of them that are starting off for you in that first week, or that will apply to you for those 5.5 to 6.5 days that you're going to be in your first kingdom. Now, some of these are kind of just standard, where you're just going to have to do tasks and it'll just kind of apply to them as you go. So the first one is going to be Road to Glory. Now, Road to Glory is similar to what those of you kind of experience for that new player experience, where you get those 5 days, you get multiple tabs in Rise of Kingdoms. And the idea here is you just want to try and read everything, like I said again, and just complete as much as you can, and also make sure you're grabbing these chests at the bottom. Now, as far as does this event carry over, one of the questions I still have to ask. I had a number of questions to ask CoD CS, but I would imagine so. That at minimum it'll carry over, and obviously a great thing would be if it reset and you can regain all these again. But you should be fine with that, because at minimum it'll carry over. Things like royal rankings, this is where if you get to certain personal powers, right, you will be able to acquire certain things, like you get this permanent city skin theme for Northern Winds, for those of you that would like that. Obviously, you get some other gems. You get these big 20 gold keys. You get 8 hours here. You get 10 8 hours for speed ups, right? So kind of being able to reach those, if that is or not. Now, again, there's not really any data set. There's no sample size yet for alliances that have been able to show that free-to-play, how high free-to-play can reach. However, what I will say is that there is a current project that's going on right now, which is the first big project since the update, because, again, jumping really only became possible as of a week ago on, I think it was the 10th or the 11th of July for 2024, where you could then start utilizing your beginner migration item. So some of these alliances is like the SCO, WRO, and just kind of giving you an idea. I think they're a couple days in right now. And some of them are, you can see here, 4, 5, 600,000. Someone's 7. I mean, I would imagine these are probably, right, look, someone's almost 800,000 a couple days in. I would imagine these are probably, right, here's someone who's over 800,000. These are probably, some people that are spending, I would argue, however much. So right, so someone's here at 45, almost 900,000. But I would probably argue, again, we'll have to see, because level 11, keep in mind, is 4 levels higher than Rise of Kingdoms, where you can only max at level 7. So part of me feels like because of that, the power averages are going to be a little bit higher, which maybe will help things like being able to hit higher tiers in royal ranking. But there's just not really any kind of sample or data sets out yet that would really kind of give us what an average for the free-to-play will be. But I'll probably cover that later on in another video once we have enough products that have ran through and we have some more information available. Next one is going to be sign-in heroes. Now, this is kind of a cool new event that essentially allows for you to unlock every G1 Season 1 Legendary hero just for logging in. So it's kind of like a loyalty reward system, right? That you just kind of get that for being active and participating. And then you also get each of the epics. So you'll get all of the epic heroes within the first 8 days. And then I believe the elites or the commons, those will just kind of come to you as you will for the blues. And then the legendaries you'll get over a 36-day period, right, which is a little bit over a month. Aside from that, you will get a lot of free rewards here, I believe up until day 36, which is going to be epic tokens, gold keys that you'll get along with the epic heroes. So this is actually kind of a nice new event that you get that they've added this in, right? And you can click on rewards, right, for all the ones that you get, and it even shows you here the ones that you've claimed or you've unclaimed. So it's kind of nice. Then we get to Behemoth Trials race, and this is where it says reach and complete Behemoth Trials stage 30 as quickly as possible to gain ranking rewards. So long dormant creatures have come under the control of dark. Show your bravery in the Behemoth Trials and rescue them all. So if I click go for Behemoth Trials, this is where you're basically kind of going through and doing your, I think this is Dragon Trail, I believe, but they've just now called it Behemoth Trials. But pay attention to it, because, and you can access that, I think it should be from campaign. Yeah, so campaign, Behemoth Trials, that's where you can go. But just, again, keep in mind that if you reach this, you also get some rewards. And then rankings, depending on where you rank, right, you may also get, unless this is the top reward, 2,000, 24-hour speed up. Let me double check here. 24, 5,000. Oh, I see. So it is. So it is a ranking reward. I guess I thought maybe if you got that, you would get it. So it looks like everyone will get rewards if you do it at least once, but if you get into the top 100 and then you work your way up, right, so it could be something that you end up vying for. Don't really know, how much free-to-play will meet that depending on how many other people, if you have over 100 people that are spending, but, it's now, what I should say is actually when you make it to Final Kingdom, it still could be a benefit because you're going to have a leveled account. So yeah, you might actually be able to do a little bit more there. Anyways, I'm just kind of theory crafting at this point. Then we'll get to, I think we had Great Halls. Yeah, here we go. So with Great Halls, this is just some additional rewards that you'll end up getting, which is upgrading your Sacred Hall to 9, 11, 12, 15, 21. And from 7, you'll get some additional rewards. Then we get to Eliana's Crisis. Now, this is similar to the Lohar event in Rise of Kingdoms, where the short version here is, Eliana is peacekeeping. You also get additional, this is something recent they added in the game, we'll talk about that in a little bit, right? You get the 20% more EXP while peacekeeping, so your secondary can level up a little bit more. However, I do recommend waiting to summon these because, you might want to have multiple alliance members that get in on these rallies, and so my recommendation is to grind as much of these as possible, and then wait for your alliance to designate a day where all of you can start doing rallies. Then we get to Festival, I do want to mention, because some people have asked, is there kind of a gem spending event? There kind of is. It's not exactly like More Than Gems, but it's called Festival of Fortitude. And it may come in your Final Kingdom or once you actually get to your home kingdom. There's no kind of set period. Some people have said once a month, but then there's kind of certain restrictions, or you might be able to kind of spend gems on certain things. I just want to point out that there is an event where you can spend gems on, but I, again, would wait until you get some more information, until you see it for yourself when it does come up on if you find it valuable or not. And then the last one I always just recommend people doing is just checking the event calendar, right? checking it because you want to find out what the reset day is. So, for example, you know that Sunday's the last day. So when it goes into reset Sunday, it goes into Monday at 0 UTC, which means that like it's Sunday 23:59 UTC in-game time, and once it hits 0 double dot 00, right, then it goes to Monday. That's when you would want to check the event calendar again, so you can kind of plan out your week appropriately. Now, let's get into heroes. So the short version here for heroes, and keep in mind this is from a free-to-play approach, is that you have 5 heroes that you can use for gathering, which is Ordo. Where's my other things? Chakcha, which is, I hope I don't have some of these unlocked. Oh, I do. Chakcha. And then we have Kella. And then we have, as an epic, we have Pan. Let me get these right. And then we have Indus as legendary. So you have... Okay, now once you have these 5 heroes unlocked, it is recommended, depending on whether or not the newest gathering heroes are released, depending on when you're watching this video, we do recommend, at least for now, to start saving gold keys until the new gathering heroes arrive. However, this really should be done after you end up getting your heroes to the necessary skill levels that they need to be at. So as it pertains for Kella, Chakcha, Pan, and Indus, it's their second skill, right? So in this case, it's going to be, second, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got to be able to count here. Which is going to be their gather speed bonuses, and then their specific RSS speed bonuses. For Ordo, it is his third skill, which is going to be for gather speed and then increased RSS specific gather speed. Once you have those skills unlocked, then it is recommended to start saving gold keys for the new gathering heroes that will be coming out. However, if those gathering heroes are already out at the time that you're watching this, then please feel free to go ahead and 10 times it on. Now let's briefly talk about talents. So for talents here, I don't know if I have one, I do, lovely. So for talents on, gotta get past this because it's a new character, so it's giving me all the goods here. So order for priority really here should be Earth's Grace. You will go overall speed. And Earth's Grace is because you get additional EXP when you finish gathering, right? So gathering heroes, Legion EXP, gather a number of resources gathered to a maximum 4,000 EXP per day. Again, this will go to a maximum of 12,000. And these will stack, so it's also nice to know that talents of the same number will stack. And you can also do talents on the same row as well. So second will go overall speed. A third will go logistics master, which increases gather speed up to 9%. Of course, you have to take mighty power no matter what. We'll do the second Earth's Grace here. This one will get you up to 20,000, where you have 5 tiers. And then we'll end up going to, I think we have Veteran Goldsmith. We're going to end up coming back to these anyways. But you do Veteran Goldsmith. We'll go Mana Master, I believe I have here. And then we'll do Quick Harvest or Joyful Burden. Now, I personally like the increased gather speed, even if you're taking a 10% load capacity reduction compared to increasing load capacity and reducing all damage they take by 10% while gathering. And then we will end up going to our next, which is going to be transport speed that we'll take here. Next is going to be Logistics Master, which is increasing overall gather speed up to 15%. And then we're going to go Earth's Grace last for the third time, right? So that's 20-20-12, which will get you at 52,000 EXP per day. Lastly, Lay of the Land or Windfall. Windfall, you get additional reward resources when your Legion depletes a resource point. When your Legion has been gathering for 1 hour and completes the task, resource production in your city increases by 50% for 1 hour. Now, part of me feels like Lay of the Land could be a little bit better overall, mainly because, and it really is up to you. Right, I haven't really heard compelling arguments from one or the other or any kind of data that's been applied. However, what I will say is that the additional rewards that you get for depleting a resource point are nice. However, if you think about, right, it says when your Legion has been gathering for 1 hour and completes the task, resource production in your city increases for 50%. So you have to be gathering for an hour. And I believe it does say complete the task. I wish it would just be something simple as saying, well, finishes, completes gathering from the resource tile, right? Because you could also manipulate this by gathering for an hour, going back to your city, and maybe it would proc there. I'm just saying if we're based on reading this. Now, I haven't used this talent myself. I just ended up going for Windfall. That's what I took. But if you like this, and again, I would assume that also refer to your project that you're in, because hopefully your leadership team will be able to convey that. I just, again, haven't asked CoD CS that question specifically at this time. And I'm sure someone probably told me this at one point, but I already forgot. And then, of course, you'll go back and you'll finish doing Lumberjack. You'll do Veteran Miner because you want to get the additional gather speeds that you can do there. Next, let's briefly talk about what should you be focusing your heroes on gathering. So Kella, you're going to use to gather gold. Ordo, you're going to use to gather mana. Chakcha, you're going to use to gather ore. And then Pan and Indus, you will use to gather wood. So hopefully that'll help you because it will be important to prioritize who you're going to be sending out to gather what resource. Next, let's talk about peacekeeping heroes that you're going to be using for PvE. So the three in this game for CoD that do have kind of similar to Lohar, to I think Boudica, if I'm remembering correctly, Ethelflaed from some that I can remember, Heroes in Rising Kingdoms that give you additional EXP gained for all heroes, or you could say for your secondaries. In this game, it's going to be Nika, Bakshi, and Aliana. So let's start with these ones. So Nika, for second skill, right? Hero EXP. And you can see here, Legion deals 10% and gains 15% more EXP while peacekeeping. So you get Hero EXP bonus that you'll gain for the heroes in that Legion. Same thing with Bakshi. Second skill, Hero XP bonus. And then Eliana is going to be right here. Again, that's also for Eliana's event. So you get the additional EXP. There's only 3 heroes that do that. But again, if you have them in your Legion, right, they'll help you out there in gaining. Then we have the other list. So let's talk about Behemoths now. So for Behemoths, you will, usually the order of what we typically are seeing now is archers being kind of the forefront for physical DPS. And then it's mages, depending. And that will be for your magical, more farther ranged DPS. And then infantry. So usually for the first few behemoths, you probably for the most part doesn't really matter because they're just kind of inherently just a lot weaker. But once you start climbing up the ranks, I would say from what some people have said, kind of once you get to like Thunder, Rock, and above, again, give or take, is really where you want to start kind of prioritizing this. However, keep in mind that depending on the behemoth you're doing may depend on what the ratio is and what specific unit types you're using. This is just kind of a general rule of thumb where usually you're going to go with archers and then you're going to have some infantry mixed in as well to do kiting, tanking, aggro pulling, etc. Again, however, though, your leadership team and your project team should be communicating that to you on what you should be doing with instructions. Now, for archers, you have 4 options for Season 1, which is where you're going to be running, it could be Guanwin for Epic, could be Craig for an Epic. For Legendaries, it would be Kanara and Nico. So you have Nico here, and then Kanara up here, right, for your archers or marksmen. Then we get to mages. For mages, you got 3 options here. Or excuse me, did I forget to put in... I did forget to put in 1. Maybe a second too as well to make sure I'm not cray-cray on this. But let's go over the epics first here. So we have Waldir, which I think I already have him up here. So we have Waldir, Atheist. However, Atheist is flying as well, and you can't start unlocking these until you get to Final Kingdom, so it should be noted. Then we end up having Alwyn for magic or mages as well, and then you have Veln, which is going to be magic. So you have 4 that you can run. Let me just double check. I want to make sure I'm not... Oh, sorry, Lilia. There we go. Good. I was like, man, why did I only write down 3 here? And this just doesn't look like it's enough. So there's 5 there that we get. And yeah, infantry cav, overall infantry. Okay. And then let's get to infantry. So for infantry, you have Bakar for epic. For legendary, we have... What do I have here? Madeline, Garwood, and Nika. So Nika we showed off there, and then we get to Garwood and Madeline that you're going to have for your other tanks or infantries. Lastly, let's then touch on PvE. We're almost done too. So for PvE, it's going to be Darklings, Forts, and Beasts. Now, Darklings are going to take up CP. Oh, you know what? Let me go to my main here because this will probably help out a little bit with being able to see more. So Darkling Patrols is going to do your CP, your command points. That's one of the items we mentioned, one of the resource items, or items I'll just say in general, that you can carry over from First Kingdom to your second or final. Forts, the recommendation here is you're going to use at least 2 people or more because they got rid of being able to solo fort. However, if you decide that you want to make a farm, then you can do forts with your farm, even if it's anywhere from 10 up to 1,000 troops that you use in your farm to join the rally, and then you use your main account to have a full march in there. That would be one of the ways that you can make sure that your accounts are getting it. But again, you could always duo rally with other people. It's just that if you do that, you don't run the risk. You don't run the high percentage chance of getting higher. What are they? Treaties. I have to remember what these are called here. Treaters for the forts. And again, hopefully your management team will convey that information to you. For guards, as far as using keys, my recommendation is use these at all times, right? Obviously, being able to do the epic chest or the highest that you can, or being able to go and grab these from other stronger players that do these. But hopefully your team is communicating this with you on when they're doing epic guards, so that way you can go and use your keys to unlock dark chests. Because again, even if you are not doing it, they should still be putting a notification or a marker down so you can just move or run a unit or a legion over or a march over to go and use your keys on the chest to collect them, as they are very helpful. And let me see if I could show you one here as an example. So for the dark chest, you'll get luck points. You can see the availability. This is what you have the opportunity to get some of these. And you can see if I click on information, just to kind of give you a quick run through, you must defeat these. After defeating a certain number of Darkling patrols and keys, dark keys can be claimed. You can obtain a maximum of 2 keys per day and hold a maximum of 5. So you got 2.5 days. After a dark chest has been opened, a new horde of Darkling guards will appear after a period of time. These are some of the gifts. After Darkling guards have been defeated, dark chests will only be available for a period of time. When you defeat Darkling guards, all members of your alliance may open the dark chest they were guarding. So it's really important that everyone, or up to everyone, goes to open these. Every time an alliance member opens a dark chest, all members will receive an alliance gift. Alliances may receive war spoils from 100 advanced dark chests, 10 elite dark chests, and 5 epic dark chests. Luck points. Artifact luck points increase your chances of receiving a legendary artifact from chest. When you reach 100 artifact luck points, you are guaranteed to receive a legendary artifact. Once you receive a legendary artifact, your luck points will be reset. So once again, it's imperative that you and up to everyone is trying to go ahead and use your keys on these, as they will help speed up your artifact acquirement. Okay. Then let's get to beasts. Now for beasts, this is for war pets, right? This has been recently introduced as of a couple updates ago. But for things like war pets, I'm going to give you a general guide here as far as which war pet is most likely to be associated with which type of march pairing. And this would just be for one if you're kind of going just to kind of get you started. And again, hopefully your team will communicate and give you a little bit more detail as well. So for infantry, it would be the Venom Lizard. And I don't know if I actually am able to show. Let me see. Can we look? Yeah. So Venom Lizard would be this one. Let me see if I could find one. Bam. So Venom Lizard for them, oh gosh, I hate that it comes up because this is a new character. Sometimes you click on some things for the first time, it'll give you the whole info bubble. Cavalry, it is going to be the Golden Rock. Let me go here, Golden Rock, that you'll end up looking for. Then for flying, it'll be the, and this is for flying and mage because they are magic based, will be the Sapphire Drake. Right? Oh, does he look so cute? And then for archer, it'll be the Snow Rock that you'll be looking for, or Snow Peak Rock. Snow Rock for short, right? Or that Snow Rock. Okay, not to be confused with legal substances. Okay, let's go to, we already talked about some gem spending, but I'll just briefly say that if you do plan to spend, I'll just give you like an entry-level thing here, which is being able to do your, I think it's the first, where do I have this for, new beginner. Oh, dang it, where am I at right now? Oops, no, hang on. Let me go to the appropriate account here to show this off. So, for this one, it'll be the new beginning bundle, dailies, which are great, right? You kind of want to do all of these. The monthlies, both, and growth fund for this as well. And then I think there was a worker support if you end up doing this. Yeah, so this one, if you do want to just unlock that second builder. Now, anything more than that, I will leave up to people who spend actual more money than I have. Next, and this is the very last piece, is we're going to talk about briefly Final Kingdom. So as I mentioned before, you want to wait to use max helps until you get, before you use any speed ups, right? So that's first and foremost, wait to get max helps before you use any speed ups. We also have the City Hall requirements list that I have on that Word doc or on my free-to-play jumper guide doc, which again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, right, can be found on the Discord. Next, we end up getting just, I guess, some honorable mentions, which is just saving. Keep in mind when you're spending gems, right? Saving, try to think about saving for that watchtower more so than you may need to actually save for your rally beacon. And I think that pretty much does it with where we're at. I have no idea how long this is going to be, if it ends up coming out to about 40, 50 minutes. It is a deep dive, and I hope that people appreciate the step-by-step walkthrough, because for me, I think it's really important. Oh, I guess the very last thing I forgot to mention, which is probably important, is faction of choice. So this will be at the very end, but I will say that as faction of choice, let me go over here just to show you that off, is you have 3 factions: Spring Warden, which is for Legion March Speed, Elixir Production Speed, and then you have your Work Elk, which you get increased March Speed when going to and from resource points or going to resource points. League of Order is Legion Magic Defense and overall Gather Speed, and then you get increased higher load capacity when gathering. For Wilderberg, it's 3% attack, 10% destruction engineering, and then you get extra resources when you finish gathering. However, my recommendation, which usually is most, is just going League of Order for 2 main important reasons. One, for the 10% increased gather speed, which is going to help you early on. And then the second one, which is going to be the increased higher load capacity. What this means is that you'll be able to gather more resources for longer, earlier on, especially as it pertains to your first kingdom. So that's my recommendation for faction of choice. Okay, now I think we're finally done. And like I was saying, in conclusion, I hope you all enjoy. I'm looking forward to continuously updating this sheet and hopefully coming out with more fine-tuned versions in the future. But really, my hope is that as a jumper, this is going to help you get off to a fantastic start in as many ways as possible. And I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. That's going to do it for me. As always, until next time.